So we'll just get started in a minute. Just wait for a few more attendees to join in. Okay, hi. Let's get started. Welcome to the Flash Talks. My name is Ashwit Atluri, and I'll be your host for the talks today. Hope all of you have been having a really good time at this virtual event, consisting of some very interesting topics. All of you are going to witness some of the transformation journeys from product to platform, from monolith to microservices, and the amazing work behind some of the open source contributions here at Intuit. We have three topics that are running in 4 rooms parallelly today. You can jump to another webinar if the next presentation is in a different room. We will take the questions in the end via a Q&A section in the webinar. So let's get started with our first session. So first up, we have Peter Thomas. He's the distinguished engineer at Intuit and the sponsor for the Intuit open source community. He's also the father of Karate, the open source tool for test automation. So Peter, you can take the stage from here.
Thank you, Ashwit. Let me go ahead and share.
Yes.
All right. And full screen, if that's possible. Yes. So yes, welcome everyone. Thank you for attending this session. And I hope you've had fun so far. And I hope to make this really interesting. Open source is a topic that's really close to my heart. Been doing it, trying to do open source even before I joined Intuit, which was 8 years ago. And I would like to just talk through what we try to do at Intuit, what we have achieved so far. And towards the end or right into the uh, middle of the presentation, I would speak about karate, which Ashwit talked about, which is a project that I'm very closely working on, which has been running for 3 years, and give you a sense of what it's all about. And in the morning, I think you attended Bridget's talk, and you would have heard her talk about how open source is a focus in Intuit. We feel that it adds a lot to the skills of engineers. If I were to give my personal experience, I have learned a ton from open source, and it never stops. What you're looking at is a screenshot of opensource.intuit.com, and you're welcome to go and check out that link later offline, and send it to your friends and look at all the interesting projects. What you see at the bottom of the screen is maybe what we consider our most successful projects. There are more in the pipeline. You're going to hear about Rohit and Namita and their work with Trapheus shortly after this, my talk. You can see karate there at the bottom, holds pride of place because as I will talk through, it has been rather successful. And I'm curious to know if any of you are using karate. Do feel free to just put a line in the chat and let me know how it's going if it applies. So what is karate? If you haven't heard about it before, it is an open source framework for test automation. It started out as only for API testing, but what the interesting thing that has happened over the last 2 years is it has expanded its capabilities of its portfolio, and it actually can do UI automation. And one of the most recent things I've been trying to do with karate is to take it into desktop automation. So if you're interested, do check it out. And at a high level, these are the key capabilities of karate, right? I talked about API testing. That's how it started, but it can do mocking, which is very interesting. Ashwit talked about monoliths to microservices. That's been a big thing at Intuit, and we still have this microservices journey. But as you can imagine, the more microservices you have, there's a big need to test them, and you invariably depend on third-party services. It might be even another team within your organization that you don't fully control. It makes your team move faster if you're able to mock uh, APIs, and Karate makes it easy, which is, there's so it's a good thing. Many teams are seeing the benefits. Performance testing, I can talk in detail about it if you're interested. But performance testing is interesting because typically, if you do performance testing today, I'm guessing, when the time comes to do performance testing, maybe it's typically at the fag end of your project, and you're kind of in a rush to get it to production, and you may need to call in another team who are specialists in different tools like JMeter, Gatling, Locust, and so on, and kind of rewrite your functional scripts. The selling point of Karate is that you can take your existing API tests or functional tests and reuse them. Just apply a load model, say multiply by 100 users or 1,000 users, and it just works. It saves a lot of time. Do check it out if that sounds interesting. And UI automation is, yes, if you've heard of tools like Selenium, Karate tries to compete with Selenium in some ways. So that's a very interesting thing that's happened. Um, and you might have a question, right? If you haven't seen or heard about Karate yet, is this popular? Are people using it? The answer is a big yes. And ThoughtWorks actually added it to their list of projects to watch out for last year, and this year, interestingly, it's even better. ThoughtWorks actually upgraded our ranking. You may have heard of this Tech Radar. If you haven't, I really recommend that you check it out. It's a great way for technologists to keep up to date with technology and be aware of all the buzzwords and maybe some of the jargon that, as you know, in our field is very hard to keep up with. So Karate is being used by many companies all over the world. There's a lot of evidence. Maybe before this, I can show you a quick uh, view of the GitHub page. By the way, there's a lot of documentation. And if you're wondering, are there contributors? There are. There's at least 45 who are on the GitHub repository. And in terms of stars, in 3 years, we have actually reached this number, which is pretty good actually for a new-ish open source project like Karate. So uh, in terms of the building blocks and what all does Karate do, as I said, it started out as an API testing tool, and it added mocking capabilities, and then performance testing, which is something I really like. As I said, it's a very interesting hack. We were able to integrate Karate with Gatling, and as I said, you just take your existing tests, and it'll magically just execute without you doing extra work. You don't need to call in a separate team. You don't need to rewrite all your flows in Gatling or JMeter, and it's pretty neat that way. This, what I've just built on the right of the slide, is the web UI automation, which all of you know is super important. Everybody's worrying about browser tests and UI tests and regression tests and functional tests, E2E tests. And as you all know, one of the biggest challenges with test automation in general, especially with UI tests, is um, yeah, just checking whether I'm audible. Ashwit, just give me a sign that you can hear me and things are okay. All right.
Yes, looks good.
So because I saw some network issues on my connection.
Okay.
I was talking about browser testing, and one of the interesting thing is some of you may have heard of Puppeteer, which is very famous, and in fact, there's now a new project called Playwright. If you haven't heard about it, it's from the Microsoft team. So there's a lot of action happening on browser automation. And one of the good things about Karate is that it can act as this layer that abstracts away all these complexities. So you can see this box here that says Chrome. So Karate can directly talk to Chrome and use it as a first-class automation client. Um, but we also support this thing called the W3C WebDriver standard. WebDriver, as some of you would know, is equivalent to Selenium, right? Selenium's W3C standard is called WebDriver. So we support both, and the importance of this is that because we support WebDriver, we get cross-browser testing, which everybody wants to do, right? You want to test that your website works in Chrome, and then if your users use Firefox or Safari, it still works the same way without changes, and that's what Karate can do for you. And last but not the least, as I said, something that is very recent in the space of karate is Windows desktop automation testing. At Intuit in the IDC, there are some teams that actually work on new Windows technologies, and karate now plays a part here. And one of the interesting things about karate is that, and you may hear in other sessions, the fact that we are doing a lot of hybrid user interfaces. We are able to mix native Windows forms and uh, UI experiences which are built in React, and we call it our App Fabric platform. And karate is able to actually seamlessly switch between these two modes of user interfaces for testing, which is a big deal. And that's one of the things that we are really excited about here. That's all I had. So this is my last slide. And I think the point here is that, why open source? Why uh, it gives you, as I said, a lot of learning opportunity. It gives us a way to connect with the community and establish a little bit of tech brand. And the point here on this slide is, if you look at all these pieces, right? And by the way, if you are familiar with the world of test automation, you would know people talk a lot about the test pyramid, and that's what you see on the right, right? The concept is that you have all these low-level tests, which are unit testing at the base of the pyramid. Most of your tests should be there, but then you go up the stack. You will get into API testing, and last at the top, you have all the UI stuff, right? Which is browser automation that I talked about, and then desktop automation. And that's karate started in the middle, which is API testing, right in the middle of that triangle you see on the right. But can you guess what all the blue boxes mean on the slide? And the answer is, all these blue aspects are things that karate is now doing. Okay, so I personally wouldn't have expected that what started out as an API testing framework would branch out and become all these crazy things in a way. I find it very exciting. It's one of the surprises that you can get from open source. So besides the learning part, I fully, thoroughly encourage you to try open source. Get involved some way if you can. There are many ways to get started by just contributing documentation, or even doing a whole project of your own. But do start at some point. And for me, it's been a big journey, right? I never got open source right. It hasn't happened for me like overnight. It takes time. There's a lot of some effort that goes behind the scenes. Part of it is passion that just comes from your excitement about this, what you can do, or the impact that you can have. And in my case, I'm kind of become passionate about test automation. So I can go on talking about this, but I'll sound like a broken record. But I will leave it there. Really, very happy to take questions if you have some, um, about karate, or in general about how we approach open source. And of course, after this, you will hear from other teams who have had success with open source at Intuit. So with that, let me check. Are there any questions, or yeah,
Sure,
from
Peter. Thank
anyone?
you for that. Uh, Anyone, if you have your questions, please post it in the Q&A section here. We'll be really happy to answer them, as Peter's here for you to answer. So, Peter, as we receive questions, I just had a question myself. So, how has this open source project essentially, given you a larger presence within the community, and how has it helped you interact with a lot of different minded people?
Oh yeah, in many ways, right? In fact, I think I've become somewhat good at social media, Ashwit.
Yeah,
It's in fact, yeah. By the way, at the bottom of the slide, you see the Twitter handle. So feel free, if you are interested in keeping up to date with the project, do follow Karate DSL on Twitter. It takes a bit of work. And it's a long game, right? It doesn't happen overnight, as I said. So I think my learning is that, yeah, and totally, Ashwit, right? I get PRs from people all over the world that I haven't met,
yeah,
but it's magical the way that you can just collaborate, and things happen.
absolutely.
In fact, definitely because of karate, I am very much used to this whole remote work, long before it became a thing. So I
Yeah,
look on the bright side that way. There is a tremendous amount you can do just being anywhere in the world with just an internet connection, and open source is all about that. So I'm very
right.
happy to be part of that. And and yes, as I said, there is some selling that you need to do, because unless you talk about things, people not come to know about it. So I've made some missteps. I've kind of been too aggressive at campaigning on Twitter sometimes, but
Yeah,
overall I think I've learned a lot, and I think it's doing really well now. I'm seeing the benefits of all of that, Arshad. Thanks.
sure. Thanks, Peter. So, folks, in the interest of time, we'll take the Q&A offline. Please reach out to our experience zones from the homepage, and we'll be really happy to answer any of your queries. Thank you, Peter. This was really insightful through your journey through karate and all of it. It's pretty wonderful, to be honest. So next up, the next speakers, we have Rohit Kumar and Namita Devadas, who will be speaking about their open source journey, and it's based on the project called Trapheus. So Namita and Rohit, please take it over from here.
Hey, thanks, Ashwet. Thank you, Peter. Always an inspiration. Yeah. So, guys, welcome. I am Rohit Kumar, and I have a colleague of mine called Namita Devadas. We both work in a team called as QuickBooks Online Advanced, and I'm going to talk about more about Trapheus, a project that we open sourced quite recently. So, QuickBooks Online Advanced is basically a flavor of QuickBooks, which basically caters to a mid-market sort of customers. By mid-market, we mean that there's a lot amount of data, to be pretty honest with these customers. So the data volume is basically pretty huge with the other than the regular queue of customers that we face. So when you have this amount of data, and these are just numbers that I've put, amount of the data that we deal with daily in online advanced team. So when this kind of a data happens, and the things like performance testing, benchmarking of your code and all, that just becomes table stakes, because we cannot ship a code that actually creates a latency regression in production. So we need to basically catch it in pre-prod before sending out our code, and that basically is what gave birth to Trapheus. So we wanted to have a case where as a developer, I should be able to successfully create a performance framework and environment. And by the way, we are all based on AWS, so it is all cloud native. And we wanted our stack to actually grow and shrink according to the workload. And we wanted to basically create a lot of performance benchmarking across our entire code bases, and we wanted to do that inside a pre-prod environment, so that we actually stop the bleeding before our customers actually get impacted with a code that is actually non-performant. So with that, we actually started internally looking at all the tools that are available in cloud, that actually how we can maintain data consistency in a performance test framework. So what happens generally when we are doing performance tests is when the test cases are not up to the standards, or when they basically do write a lot of data into our databases. Over time, the data size grows, and our test cases, if you plot the chart for the test cases, the test cases can become skewed. So ultimately, it will not give you the desired results, and we will not be able to confidently say that, okay, this code is actually going to cause a latency regression in production. So with that, what we did was basically we tried to look at in cloud, we tried to look at how we can actually restore our databases from a golden image. And when we looked at AWS, we saw that there's a way of actually doing a restore of a database from a snapshot. Now, many databases actually does give a way of actually taking data which is available from production databases and create a snapshot out of it. And we wanted to actually go ahead and create a production pipeline that can actually take the data and then recover the data before a test run from a particular snapshot, so that we can maintain data consistency in the performance frameworks. Rita, can you move to the next slide? Yeah. So when we were trying to put out the solution, right, we wanted to have some guiding principles across this, and we wanted the solution to be like completely automated. We never wanted a human intervention, so that this just like fits into our CI pipeline and happens daily, and like splits out reports, so that we can look at it and we can actually catch the code that actually is causing regressions, right? And we wanted the entire solution to be cost effective. So when we are on cloud, there is obviously a set of cost that is associated with our solution. So we wanted the solution to be picked that so that it is the most cost effective. And we wanted, since this thing was going to happen just like once a day or like overnightly, we wanted the developers to be able to like spin up clusters on the cloud, so that can actually do that. And then the entire infrastructure that shreds itself down once the tests are achieved, right? We wanted it to scale, and we wanted it to scale to huge amount of data, and the number of databases that we support are also like pretty awesome, in the sense that we support all the RDS instances that are available out there in AWS. We wanted the solution to be reusable across data stores, and we wanted solution to be self-healing, in the sense that if any kind of an error occurs, we wanted the retries to happen automatically, and failure alerts to be sent across the stack whenever the system failed. Okay, if we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so we basically built a tool internally that would do an automated way of actually restoring the pipeline of an RDS instance. Now, if you look at a database, there can be like a sole instance of a database, but when there's huge amount of data, the database can be clusterized. So it can have a read replica and a writer instance, correct? So we wanted to be able to support the snapshot and restoration process across both these types of setups. So we wanted the solution that we did was we modeled the restoration pipeline as a distributed state machine in a very cloud native and a serverless manner in AWS. Now, what it does basically is, if you look at restoring of a database in production environments, you generally have to reach out to a person who is kind of a DBA who actually is well versed, and he will basically write the scripts for you, and he will take a dump of your database and give it. And as the size of the database increases, the dump actually takes a lot of time, and the restoration process takes a lot of time, thereby frustrating a developer who wants to run some sort of test. So what Trapheus does is it converts the existing instance of a database to a temporary instance. Since we are on the cloud, we are able to restore the new instance like in a very fast manner. And what it does basically is in the cloud environment, all of your configuration for your database, which is the network configuration, the security configuration, and all of that, Traces internally takes care of all of that, and you don't need to specify any sort of configuration for your database. So it will be like your data just restores into a new instance, and it is as good as getting a new database up there and running. So those are some of the advantages of Traces that I've talked about. If we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, so my colleague Namita will talk more about on detail of what are the tech stack that we completely use in order to achieve this. Over to you, Namita.
Thank you, Rohit. Moving on, like continuing from what I just explained, I think what we mostly use for having this entire pipeline setup, we have this as a completely distributed state machine. So a lot of AWS services that we use. So starting off, we have the AWS step functions. It basically facilitates having infra as a service. We're able to put together a lot of AWS services as a complete single application in a completely modularized manner, which allows for easy understanding of each step of the workflow, having parallel executions of different things. At the same time, makes it very easy to debug. Each of the steps that we mentioned previously in terms of trying to convert it to a temporary instance or restoring a database or deleting, each of these steps are individually executed using AWS Lambdas. We use Lambda layers across all of these Lambdas that we have in order to facilitate any custom exception handling, any common utility code and things like that are done using AWS Lambda layers. All the Lambdas internally use the Python SDK for AWS, which is Boto3. We also have Boto3 also provides custom waiters, which enable us to configure, the entire polling mechanism in terms of how do we wait for like all of these steps of the restoration, delete, etc., will all happen in an async manner. So it helps us figure out, how we exactly come to know if a particular step is complete and how we can move on to the next, and the complete transition is handled internally. To put all of these things together, we obviously have an AWS CloudFormation template, which enables the entire thing to be created as a particular template.yaml, where we can add all the configurations for each of our components. And finally, we use AWS SAM in order to put all this together as a YAML and facilitate the deployment of it in a very seamless manner to your AWS account. So basically what we do when we start off is that when you have to start off the state machine, like we mentioned, we support all kinds of RDS instances, including the sole instance, like the single instances, and the clusterized one with the read replica support. So at any point when you have to start off your execution of the state machine, what we do is as a developer, you get to choose between which of your instance or which type you want to execute this entire state machine for. So that's what our root state is, where you provide where as a developer you provide what is the instance that you want to restore and what type it is, and what is the task that you want to perform on it, where like Rohit mentioned that we support just the restoration of a database from an existing snapshot, or in case of use cases where you want to persist any, let's say any schema kind of changes or any other data changes which needs to be persisted across the future runs. You get to refresh your golden snapshot, and that is also supported. So these are the three options that we have, and which is seamlessly working across both an instance and a clusterized one. Um, so I will just show you on my on an AWS account when we have deployed this. So this is a CloudFormation stack for Trapheus. Which one's deployed using SAM creates all the Lambda functions that we need, creates the common Lambda layer. We have the state machine and let's say the security groups and the IAM roles. Now, if I move to this is my state machine, which is basically the step function. I can see what are the previous execution that had been run and what has exactly happened on that. So if I just click on one, I'll be able to see exactly what is the process that was completed at every point. And let's say for every step, I can see what is the input and output. So when I mentioned the root state, this is the root state. One second. Yeah. So if it's the root state, it's basically checking if you should restore a clusterized one or an instance. So you can see this is what I'm just taking is what is the identifier, what is the task, which is either creating the snapshot or we just trying to restore. And if it's a cluster or not, and by option, if you want to provide if an existing snapshot ID is already there. So in case you want to do a new execution, we provide a similar input where you just have to mention these four as a simple JSON, and the entire state machine starts off. So coming back to what we do, just give me a minute. Yeah. So this is basically what the complete state machine looks like. As we start off in the root state, we get to choose between one of the two branches, one between the single instance and one as the cluster snapshot. In both the cases, what happens is basically all of these are individual steps which allow for a transition from one part of the process to the other, starting off with the conversion of the database to a temporary instance, then to the restore, and then to the delete. So each of these steps are completely interlinked, happen in a completely sequential manner, where you decide if you want to take the snapshot, you complete that process. There is the entire mechanism where you wait for the particular thing to be completed so that we move on to the next step, and the entire transition of all the input, output, and all the status of all of that is completely followed as part of the state machine. At each step, you also can configure, in case any error or any failure happens at any point, you have a failure mechanism at the bottom. So each of these is completely joined to sending a failure alert and a Slack alert, both using an email or Slack. At the same time, if there's a failure, how do you want to revert and roll back, right? So that your entire system is completely back to normal, even if the restoration process is not complete. You, as a developer, you're not blocked, or your environment is still up and available. So this is one. In case of a cluster, obviously we have the read replicas and the writer instances as well. All of those are when a restoration process completes, all of that is maintained as intact as it was before the restoration, with all of the configurations kept as is. Similarly, we have for a single instance case as well, where again we have the case of either creating a snapshot, or just restoring. All of those configurations are kept as is. We maintain all the security configurations, the connectivity, once everything is maintained as is. And just moving on to what we do as part of the error and retry handling, as part of the state
Sorry,
machine.
Namita, just a time check. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Ashwit. So this will be the last part. So what we do as part of the the error and retry handling part is that we can obviously mention which for any specific lambdas or any specific task, if you have any particular error that we want to retry, or just we want to send a failure alert for, we are able to configure a backoff rate and a number of retries. At the same time, we also know that all AWS Lambdas have a 15-minute timeout, right? So in case your process takes more time and we want to keep waiting, or we want to keep figuring out if that is complete or not, then we move on. Then we're able to do that as well, because if even in case of a timeout happens, we can configure a retry. So coming just back to what we want to do for open source is basically that, when we tried to do this entire tooling, we did not know if there is an existing support in the industry for this at all in the community. So that's when we realized that we can open source this, and and provide this in terms of the community for more use cases. What we're trying to extend Trapheus is also for more disaster recovery solutions. At the same time, have it extended for data lake purposes, where you can have a complete data ingestion pipeline. These are the things we're looking for to expand in the future. These are just a couple of the tech blogs that we have in terms of where we've been featured in the AWS tech blogs, in the Intuit engineering blog, AWS developer advocates feeds as well. That's pretty much what I had. Do reach out to us, do check out the repository, and let us know if you want to contribute and have any feedback. I will open it up to questions if we have time.
Okay, guys, looks like in the interest of time, we'll take it offline, the Q&A. Please reach out to our experience zone from the homepage, and we'll be really happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you, Rohit, and thank you, Namita. It was really insightful talk. So next up, we have Veena Desai, who will be speaking on reacting to the client-side revolution with React. So Veena, please take it from here.
Thank you, Ashwit. Let me go and share my screen. Okay, is my screen visible?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining me today. I'm Veena, and my preferred pronouns are she and her. I'm a full stack developer, part of core services and experiences or. I have been with Intuit for over 2 years now. I'm a front end and an accessibility enthusiast, and very much excited to be walking you all through Intuit's front end transformation over the years. Today's agenda is as follows. We will quickly go through some of the front-end buzzwords, history of how and what web applications were developed at Intuit earlier, and then get into the details of today's topic, reacting to the client-side revolution with React, where we will discuss about Intuit's amazing front-end transformation, and with the help of a use case, we will see how seamless user experience has been achieved and end with Q&A. If you are a web developer today or have friends or colleagues who are working on front-end technologies, chances are that you might have heard the common buzzwords and discussions around the latest and trendiest front-end libraries, frameworks, templating, components, widgets, and a lot more. Let us start by understanding what UI templates are. In simple words, template means a pattern. User interface templates control the look and feel of how a web page looks. In order for everyone to relate, let us consider the example of an atomic design. Consider the buttons, form elements such as text area, label, spinner, etc. are all atoms, which are also known as the basic UI components. Using these basic structures or elements, we can create user info form, a sign-in form, sign-up form, etc., representing a molecule. In other words, this is how the basic components are put together to form a structure. We can put multiple molecules or components such as header, footer, a form body representing an organism, which forms a single page application without any actions. We incorporate various functionalities and callbacks to handle page navigations, button clicks, etc., called a template. Using multiple templates, we can build an entire product profile. Based on this simple architecture, a decade or even before, the entire Intuit product ecosystem was built. Here is how the QuickBooks Online login template looked like. We had multiple containers or components, as I have explained earlier, such as header, footer, and body, which are put together with a proper CSS and on click are made to navigate and perform certain actions. The UI development at Intuit in the early 2000s was based on templating multiple pages. We used Expanjo, a third generation template expansion system. The first version of it was called Expando and was written in C. The second version called Expando was written in Perl, nothing similar to the first one in terms of implementation, except both were templating systems. The third version called Expanjo is similar to the second version, but written in Java. With all things Java, the obligatory coffee reference was embedded in its name. A simple Expanjo code would look something like this. Since it is a Java templating service, we first declare a new object, allocate memory, initialize it, give the directory path, create a new file in the directory, and then parse the file. Now say if you want to have a token hello and want to change its value dynamically, we must first implement a callback, which is extended to the Expanjo callback interface. We then process the object, which is translated to either XML or HTML pages, which is rendered in the browser. The pros with this kind of templating mechanism are speed. Creating a new template from an existing template is very easy. Copy, paste, modify, and repeat it over and over again. It is consistent across one product. Same look and feel can be obtained with a template. We can reuse this template as many times as we want in the product. For example, template can be used in sign in, sign up, feedback form, user info form, and other places. There are a lot of cons with this templating mechanism. We can reuse the template, but this will force you to have the exact same form. Suppose you want to have a forgot password link in your application sign in page, then you can't use this template in sign up page, as forgot password makes no sense even before you create a password, resulting in creating a new clone or copy of the template file which has all the lines of code similar to the previous template except for the forgot password button. There were thousands of such clones which existed. These 15-year-old Expanjo pages are tied up with very complex monolithic code, which made it very difficult to maintain and modify. Every file had more than 6K lines of code, which made it nearly impossible to debug. Even a small change to this code was followed by multiple PRs to monolith, controlled by multiple flags. It required multi-team collaboration and also teams testing, validation, and sign-off. Moreover, a PR has to be a part of fortnight release, which has a wait time of 15 days. That means you can only see your changes go live after 15 long days. This code was highly secure, but to upgrade to the latest secure and risk compliant software made it a developer's worst nightmare. Not to worry, this was all in the past. Intuit's client-side revolution began in the early 2015. Intuit, the proud owner of QuickBooks, TurboTax Mint, is continuously disrupting technology and powering prosperity in personal finance, accounting, and tax return software domains. With increase in the number of products and offerings, it is not only important to have consistency across one product, but also across products to emphasize and empower Intuit's brand and express unique identity and help our customers in every which way. This is when Intuit's App Fabric came into picture. App Fabric enables teams to create applications from ground up using single page architecture in less than a day. Developers can focus on features and App Fabric infrastructure takes care of the rest. App Fabric even saves the cost of maintaining your own hardware and ops resources. Component, widget, plugin, and web application are the fundamental architectural concepts. A web shell is the front-end piece of App Fabric. It acts as a container in the browser that is used to host App Fabric apps and plugins. The shell service is the backend of App Fabric web architecture. It is a Node.js application service that provides the base HTML and bootstrapping for single-page applications. It helps to construct the customized base HTML for a given route. There are so many benefits by creating a service or a web application using Intuit's App Fabric infrastructure. If you remember, I mentioned earlier that code deployment and release process took over 15 days. Now the process is so simple and the rollout and rollback takes less than 10 minutes because you only have to modify a small piece of code in your service and application. It is frictionless. That is, integrating the same plugin or widget in another product or offering, or working on multiple plugins is a seamless effort and a great learning for a developer. It provides a real-time personalized experience. It helps create highly reusable, embeddable, and extensible UI. All the tools necessary for a service or application development, such as build deploy pipelines, APIs to measure performance, tools to track the user clicks and capture analytics, tools to log and monitor alerts, and most importantly, tools to perform experimentation, which can be either the phased-wise rollouts or the A/B testing come as a package once you start creating your application using Intuit's App Fabric infrastructure. You might be wondering, how long will all this setup take? Without App Fabric, it was around 300 man hours. But now it is just a click of a button. Isn't that super cool? Now you know how Intuit and all of us here reacted to the client-side revolution. Let me now explain why I mentioned in the topic the phrase with React. At Intuit, all our components are designed in a very user-friendly way. Intuit design system components are all React components. We have a huge customer base and most of our accounting features are customizable. React helps us build large-scale applications, which helps us achieve this goal and provide multiple personalized widgets for the user. It ensures faster rendering and very stable code. It is also highly responsive. With the generations ahead to be highly reliant on mobile applications, React Native will help us extend our functionalities. And most important things from a product perspective are security and accessibility. We have always ensured to have high security in all our web applications. We have different levels of authentication based on which the customer is shown multiple challenges such as email and phone verification and validation, security questions, etc. to proceed with important transactions. Intuit's QuickBooks accounting software has more than 10,000 users who rely on accessibility features. We have achieved accessibility to make our differently abled customers feel highly inclusive and thus making Intuit number one accounting software. All of this is achieved by simply following the fundamentals provided by the React ecosystem. I would love to show you a seamless user experience that we have achieved. I am part of QuickBooks login team, and this is the project our team is working on. On the left side, you can see the old login page, which is achieved by combining multiple Expanjo templates. On the right side, you can see the new simplified login, which is an App Fabric web application. The new QBO login is not only aesthetically pleasing, but also very intuitive. It can be consumed by other teams and used across multiple products. It uses IDS components. With its mobile-first design, QBO login provides a seamless experience for a mobile user. It is accessibility friendly. The new login page is very light when compared to the monolithic Expanjo page on the left. It loads faster, hence highly performant and operational excellent. The login module is highly scalable and can be consumed by any product at Intuit by simply passing customizable properties like product name, theme, enable, disable a particular feature, etc. With ease, we have enabled multi-factor authentication, making QBO login highly secure. Thank you all for joining me today. Hope you all enjoyed this session. I am happy to take your queries.
Thank you, Veena. Please post in your Q&A if you do have any questions. So yeah, we seem to have a question here, Veena. Uh, it says, sent in by Vashishta. Nice demo. What are the UI security and accessibility practices followed at Intuit?
We have always stick to the very fundamentals of accessibility and security provided by the React ecosystem. I'm talking in terms of the client side stuff. And we have used the basics and have extended on top of it. The power of React is that it is a library and it can be used along other libraries by simply embedding into one of the lifecycle methods such as component did mount or component did update. So you can always have other security and accessibility related libraries in your application. I will also share the links provided by the React community for you to explore.
Thanks, Veena. There's another question from Vashishta again. How many plugins can App Fabric host?
Okay, App Fabric infrastructure can host as many plugins and web applications as we want. With increasing number of features in all our products and offerings, we have the ability to scale. Just in QuickBooks online software, we have over 700 and increasing plugins deployed in production.
Cool, that's really great. So Veena, just another question. So how has it been working on React for you personally and the learning curve of React and App Fabric?
Yeah, it has been really great. I'm a full stack developer and I basically worked in Java mostly. But when I started exploring React and the amazing things that Intuit has provided as a platform really helped me to scale up and focus on the technology part of it. That is React and React hooks and many other stuff. And I even have expanded my scope and explored many accessibility aspects of it. So it has
Sure.
been really good.
Cool. There's another question. Is App Fabric open source?
uh, yeah, App Fabric is not open sourced and is internal to Intuit. Uh, but you can always explore other UI tech stack, uh, like Intuit design system for QuickBooks is open for everyone to contribute. There are also multiple front-end projects, all equally good, open sourced at Intuit. I will also share the links for Intuit open source and QuickBooks design system, and you can all explore.
Awesome, Veena. Thank you for answering those questions. So, folks, if you do have any more questions, please reach out to our experience zone, where we'll be really happy to answer any of your queries. Thank you, Veena. It was really insightful. So, everyone will now break for lunch from 12:30 to 1:30, where the booths will be again open for conversations with talent acquisition teams, Intuit Circles, Intuit CSR, and Innovation Catalyst team from the Interactive Zone. And don't forget the last leg of the treasure hunt is going to start now. Post lunch, we'll also have a mindfulness session by Shenomics, so please don't miss it. Yep. Thank you everyone for joining in for these tech talks.